today, apparently. Well, I have a lot to do. A whole lot to do. And you will be joining me for parts of it. The driving parts. Maybe even another part, because who knows? Right now, our task is, my task is to get to the credit union and get out just a little bit of cash and a roll of quarters. That way we can go to the laundromat, and at the laundromat we'll be planning things out, putting things together for classes I'll be offering, so that I can send those proposals to USF, to HCC, and possibly to a few other places. On the way back from the laundry, depending on which laundry I go to, I think I'll go to one over near Jeff City so that I can stop at the library. Well, I also need to go buy storage. So on the way back, we'll stop at the library to find out about being able to offer a community class for free. Now, from there, coming back to that, which is what I said for now, do need to get a lot of grading done today and take a security course, which I've watched the videos for, but apparently when I watched the videos I wasn't logged in. Strange. So I need to redo the security training. Now, I mentioned offering free classes, so why would one do that? Well, all the grades and our time, giving something for free in order to lead to something that costs money, is the general concept of the mastery program. Yes, I am using this funny, weird accent. I don't know what it is, but yes, we offer the course for free, where we give some of the things we're going to say we're going to give. And we're going to go on a whole bunch of tangents that aren't really tangents and are useful information, but are making you wonder, okay, I'm sitting here for how many hours, and really all you've said is go on Facebook and just offer a class for free with the time and the money to advertise, but I'm at it, yeah. Actually, yes, that does work. Absolutely works. Positively works, yes. And I'm not being facetious when I say that. It does. For me, while I want to do that online stuff, I want to be in my community. I want to network to find the resources that are around me locally, so that if I need something, I know somebody who has it. Now you might say, oh, well, there's Angie's List and there's all these other things. It's interesting, the various memes and stories you read online. And there's one, and I mean, there have been various versions of this story that go back at least to the time I was in college, like early on, which is, in fact, the newer versions, of course, incorporate Uber and all these other things. But the story goes that, you know, I guess it goes back to the time of Amazon when I'm thinking about it, because that's really when you started being able to order things online. But you could always pay somebody to do something like grocery shopping. I mean, there have been shoppers for a long time. So the story goes that a son is helping his dad and says, hey Dad, you don't need to go to the grocery store anymore. We can just set you up and have it sent to you every day. And you don't need to go to the hardware store to order any of these things. We can just order them online. And the dad says, well, if you do that, son, I'm not going to be able to go and talk to Susan at the grocery store and, you know, find out how her kids are doing and, you know, find out what's happening with everything, which means that if I have a problem, she wouldn't know that I'm having that problem and suggest that I talk to this other person who can help me. You know, we say we have that connection online. And the story keeps going to basically the father explaining real world, real life connections are really important. Facebook is international. Instagram, LinkedIn. Okay. So, what about Nextdoor? Wonderful thing. Love it. And I think that actually, if you need to remain inside or the ability to do in-person stuff doesn't quite exist yet for you, for whatever reason, then a website such as Nextdoor, I think, is the closest thing you get to that community experience at a local level, outside of also joining local groups on Facebook or creating that local group if you can't find it, or it's a private group and you can't join it. Create your own group, and you can be like, you know, people of Winfield Dunn. And I'm just saying that because this is Winfield Dunn Parkway. And you would reach out to people on Facebook and social media to join that site on Facebook. Or reach out to those people to create the group on LinkedIn. But what about true real life? Like where you actually get to physically see this other person. Now, George Carlin once joked, or maybe he didn't joke, but he once said, if you had to shake hands with every single person, the world would be a much nicer place. In the world religions class I teach, there's a video, and in it, one of the things is, you know, if I sit down with you and we have coffee or tea, or whatever it is we have, and you tell me what's happening in your life, you just hold space, and I tell you what's happening, and I just hold space, and I tell you what's happening in my life, and you just hold space, and we hear about the problems and the blessings of the family, the friends, the community, the state. At the end of such a meeting, while I may not love you, it would be impossible to hate you. Now, why would it be impossible to hate you? Because you're like, you know, well, what if we just disagree on everything that's said? Well, the idea is you're having positive dialogue. You're having non-judgmental dialogue. You're having non-labeling dialogue. You're having open and honest and equal dialogue. Whole discussion there on dialogue. But the idea is you're actually creating a bond. Can you create a bond online? Absolutely. Positively. There are friends I have online that I've either never met, or I knew them for upwards of a decade before we actually met in person in real life. We tried a couple times, but things just fell through. I mean, it's happened over and over. I have developed amazing friendships online. But just as I love teaching online, there's something about, and it has to do with energy, and it has to do with vibration, and it just also happens to deal with essentially the entire physical experience of being around somebody else. So self-care. Within that self-care, let's do something that, unboggles the brain. Maybe it's a card game, a video game, a something, a book you're reading. Let's take a little bit of time to visit a trouble tree, whatever form that trouble tree takes. And let's do something to make us feel good, whether it is a meal or an exercise. And finally, let's do something that quiets us. So meditation, contemplation, prayer, whatever it is. Now, what can we do with the rest of the time? Okay, we have kids, we gotta take care of them. Yeah. Well, guess what? There's someplace you could go with your kids. There's someplace you could go on your own with your spouse. And I understand that in some places transportation could be an issue. So again, this might not work for absolutely everyone, but again, different things work for different people. Go to the library. Yep, very simple. You can network at the library. Yes, there are also computers there, so if you're having problems with finances, you could always let go of your internet for a little bit, probably save a decent amount of money, and use the library. Did I just go there? Yes, I did. But go to the public library. Find out what resources they have. Find out how they can help you, whether it is research, whether it is little classes and courses that are offered for free, or that you might be able to offer. Talk to the people there. Seriously, just talk to the people there. It will be so worth it. Go to the grocery store. Not as good a place as the library, but it's still possible there to start up a conversation with something. Go to your local small business association, local community centers. Find the groups that have real life meetings. So I haven't been on the site in a long time, and it's one of the sites that I probably should get onto if I'm going to be doing courses or wanting to, network in my local community. But get onto meetup.com. Hey, I haven't been there in a long time. I don't know what it's like at this point, but in the past it had options for, all these free things you can do. You can, dog walkers could meet up at the park, or if you like to do bird watching, which the park is another place. Federal parks, state parks, local city parks, community parks. Nice thing about parks is they can solve multiple things. They can help you find a trouble tree. They can let you get outside and get fresh air. And they can be a place to network or learn, to clear your mind and meditate. All these different things can happen there. Many of your city and state parks are going to have different courses and programs. Well, maybe if you have a skill set that's related to that, you can offer it. And sure, maybe just like online, your initial offer is free. Your initial offer is just to network and to practice what you're doing. Same thing that they say all the grades, all your coaches, all your trainers, they're gonna say offer it free at first, but you're giving tidbits in order to, welcome them into the next level that they pay. Yeah, that's why when a new product comes out, you can get free samples. And why occasionally they go ahead and give you a free sample or a BOGO, just so you remember that. That system of advertising and marketing, it does not matter the format. If what seems to be missing from your online offering is this real connection, then try doing it in your local community. If you've been trying to do it in real life with FNI and ENI, which by the way operate under the same concepts, if you've been part of the business networking groups in real life and they're not serving you the way you need, try the online ones. But a key component in all of this is also, what is your world going to be? There's a song, I like talking about you, but occasionally I want to talk about me. I want to talk about her, I want to talk about, yeah, it's a country song. I like all types of music. But there is something to that as well. You hear two things. Well, you hear a whole lot of things. But let's take, and I know I use them a lot, and the reason being is because I've taken courses, I've done a ton of free things with them, I've gotten annoyed, I've gotten jaded at times. I was once told by a Robbins rep that until I got a job and had some money, I shouldn't be trying to do any other stuff. You want to talk about a person who's definitely not representing the Robbins way and totally messed up. I allowed it because I had my own mental craps going on, physical stuff mostly, but I had my own stuff. But this woman, this Robbins rep, who I think is still a Robbins rep, basically told me it wasn't possible. Now, of course, when you hear somebody say it isn't possible, including yourself, you should remember the words, impossible spells I am possible. It's cute. I've been saying it for a long time. I have a poem I wrote back in the early MySpace days called I Am Possible. But, anyways, they're going to say you only offer a little bit. When you get the free sampler, you're getting a free sample. You're not getting a full size anything. You're not getting the full amount of anything. You're getting a sample size. But the thing is, they will tell you never hold back. Doesn't matter which person you listen to. They will say when you are helping somebody, you don't hold back. So maybe the person you're working with, you go ahead and give them what you tell your third degree specialists, whatever, your client at the highest tier. Maybe you end up saying something to your brand new, hasn't even bought a tier yet person, because that's what they need to know. You solve a problem. Almost no matter what it takes. And it's being self-report. Or you at least give them the first couple steps that will make things better. But you don't hold back. You're prepared to give everything, but you never give everything. You give the first steps. You give them a sample. That is advertising. That is marketing. In part. I mean, there's a whole bunch more to advertising and a whole bunch more to marketing. I'm not the best at either of those things. A lot of the challenges I've had, though, are very, I guess, mindset or just something else. That's another video. So, in real life, how can we do these things the way that we do them now online? And it's not holding back. And it is that simple thing of holding space for somebody, giving some information if they welcome it. Now, that right there brings up immediate thoughts. Well, I don't want to trigger somebody, and, you know, there's all this negativity about unasked for advice. Let me give you a little lesson. Just because somebody gives advice whatever that advice is, doesn't mean you have to take it. Just because somebody offers you a perfume sample doesn't mean you have to take it. And when they spray you anyways, yes, you can get mad, especially if you have allergies or something. But, hey, it's that person's job in the case of perfume. But they're doing what they know how to do. Should they apologize? Well, honestly, probably yes. Should the person who gave you advice to start something else apologize for giving that advice? Well, did they force it on you, or did you choose to follow it? Did you investigate it yourself first? And I think that's a big component. You know, the phrase, if somebody told you that jumping off this bridge would get you $1 million. By the way, the river no longer is flowing. It's like a creek that's a foot deep. If you jump over the bridge, you know, you might die. But then again, maybe the bridge is only like 3 feet above the creek. I mean, what are all the variables? I'm not just going to do it so I make $1 million. I need to know, like, why are you offering this in a way? Now, there is trust and faith. Well, you're offering it because, well, you're kind and everything, and you just want to see that somebody's willing to take that leap of faith. Dive in, let's go to the great unknown. I can't think of the guy's name, but Stephen Curtis Chapman would dive in, let's go to the great unknown. The idea of giving advice and receiving advice is, for some, a triggering subject, a tricky subject. But sometimes that advice might be just what somebody needs to hear, regardless of whether they take it or don't take it. I mean, if you've told a person to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, you know, we might complain, well, if they had only done what I told them to do, well, maybe, maybe not. Just as we need to let go of the judgment for the self, we need to let go of the judgment for others. People have given me advice, and I've taken it, and it's helped, and I've taken it, and it's hurt. I've given advice, and same thing. I've been given or received, well, I've received or I've given advice that both of us thought was good and it ended up being bad, or both of us thought that it wasn't the greatest advice, but in the end, that advice is what worked. Offering opinions. Almost everything around us is an opinion. And again, what works for one person may not work for another. So whatever the advice is, even on medical advice, they say, you know, get a second opinion sometimes. And I would say definitely get a second opinion. Get a third and a fourth even. Research it. And if you're not wanting the advice, then let the person know politely. Thanks, but I didn't need to. I'm actually doing all right. You know, it's any number of factors like that. I don't know. please tell me. There might be a message that is, very confusing from the universe. I might be getting fortune cookies that say, now is a good time to read a book. And I might get another one that says, don't spend time reading, spend time doing. You can get mixed signals. And sometimes, if a person just said, hey, I don't see this working out, it might be that voice you needed to hear to decide that, okay, this person is saying that. I value this person. I think this person is accurate. I think they read things well. Somebody giving you random advice, whether they are a friend or a stranger, whether you know their credentials or don't, whether they have credentials or not. I mean, seriously, sometimes a little kid who doesn't have experience, doesn't have education, they don't have credentials, but sometimes they can see something in a way that's like, oh man, why didn't I think of that? We never know where the advice that actually will work come from. Just like, you could say something to your friend or your spouse 100 times to the point where they're yawning, like I just am. And then they hear it from somebody else, and that's like, that's what I've been saying. TV shows like to point this out, and the thing is, when somebody doesn't listen, we might begin to stop asking or stop giving. And there's a balance. I told you for the 50th time. Well, why didn't you tell me 51 times? That was the one I was going to listen to. I didn't know that. And you told me not to tell you that the same time. Well, that's because I was in a stressed out state, man. I wasn't prepared and open, but I got through that time because I finally went out and sat under a tree, and I told the tree my problems, and now I am ready to listen. But you didn't tell me you're ready to listen. I thought you still didn't want me saying anything to you. Well, I didn't know I was ready, and when I was, I figured you were mad at me and wouldn't tell me or explain things to me again. Well, why didn't you say that? I wasn't actually mad at you. I wasn't giving up on you. I just thought you didn't want to know because you told me you didn't want to know. And it goes on and on from that. Communication. Right? All the time. So, if you have advice, give advice. If you don't have advice, don't offer advice. If you need advice, ask for advice. If you don't want advice, state you don't want advice. But don't be closed off to advice, because you may actually be given advice you need. It is a convoluted mess. Alright, lovies. I have to go take care of stuff. Mwah.